Hey everyone, it's me, Andy, here from the Commander's Brew. With me, as always, is my boy, Karth, keeping it real. Hey, this is a major episode. It's our Midnight Hunt set review. We're back in Innistrad. Let's check out the cards. Okay, let's get started here. Let's talk about some of the new mechanics that we're seeing in the new set that are, and whether or not they'll have any sort of impact whatsoever on Commander before we get to the actual individual cards. So the first one that we have here is Disturb. And Disturb is, I think, is the coolest one, personally. I'm the most excited for Disturb. Disturb is like, basically it's flashback, but for creatures. And then, but when it comes back from the graveyard, it's transformed. So it's another way of getting flip cards going. And one example is Dennick, Pious Apprentice. This is a legendary creature. We'll be talking more about this actual card in a second. But as you can see here, the Disturb cost is 2 white blue, and then that gives you our the other side of Dennick once it's in there, and then he'll come back as this other side, which is Dennick Pious Apparition. So we have Dennick Pious Apprentice, Pious Apparition. Very close names there.
It's a bit like Aftermath in the sense that from the graveyard it's one thing, from your hand it's another thing. And it's also a bit like Unearth, because once you've brought it back from the graveyard, if it would die again, it gets exiled. Otherwise, you'd be able to disturb it over and over and over and over.
Yeah, and to be clear, it says you may cast this card from your graveyard transformed for its disturb cost. So you are casting a card. You are casting this card. It's not an activated ability, correct?
Right.
It's like an alternate cost or whatever.
Yeah. So for in Dennick's case, you can let Dennick go to the graveyard and then cast for Disturb, and then when he's exiled, put him back in your command zone, and then that'll be the first time you're paying tax. You don't have to pay tax
right when it's
on
cast.
Disturb.
Yeah, that's true. So that's nice for a commander. I like that for a commander as well. So that's pretty cool.
It only exists on white and blue cards except for a single black card, and so I don't think this is the kind of thing you would brew around in a whole deck. But Dennick is a pretty cool commander.
Yeah, and again, we'll get into actual Dennick the commander in a second when his card comes up.
Right. The other mechanic is Coven, which is sort of like you need to have 3 creatures with different powers, and then something happens. The legendary that kind of champions this is Sigarda, Champion of Light. 1 green, white, legendary angel, 4/4, flying trample. She's an anthem for humans. Humans get +1/+1. And here's what Coven says: whenever Sigarda attacks, if you control 3 creatures, 3 or more, with different powers, Sigarda's got a 4, so you just need a couple other numbers. Look at the top 5 cards of your library, reveal a human from among them, put it in your hand. Rest go on the bottom. Decent. Good for humans deck. And, humans come in all shapes and sizes. You would think most humans are about 1/1, maybe 2/2 if they're knights, but there's all sizes of humans.
Yeah. This is the one I was least excited about, which is weird considering what the last one is. But Coven is just like a way to activate triggers, essentially, right? It's just a triggering mechanic that's going to let you do something. So it's more the things that happen that will be more exciting than the actual Coven itself. And
there's nothing in the Coven abilities like beyond maybe drawing a card or something. I don't even really know what they are, but they're not that exciting. They're more for like, a creature gets a little bit bigger.
There's some +1/+1 counter stuff with Coven. And you're not going to see a lot of the Coven stuff in this review just because it's a lot of common and uncommon type stuff, and it's like pretty small effects. Sigarda's like kind of the only one where it stands out. Finally, we have Decayed, which is an interesting new ability. It is we don't have a Decayed card here.
No.
Decayed is something that comes out. It's on. I think it's only on zombie tokens, right? Is that right? Like it will.
I think so.
It will affect. It might not be. It's possible that it's on like a creature that they bring back or something like that. But anyways, here's what Decayed is. Basically, it's you'll get something where it'll be like get 3 zombie tokens, two twos that have Decayed, and Decayed means that they can't block, and you have to sacrifice them after they attack. So like on the end step, is it? Or is it after, is it at the end of combat? I can't remember.
At the end of combat.
Right. So that's way worse than just getting a regular zombie token. Here's why I like it though. Because it is such a major downside, I think that they're going to find new powerful ways to give you zombie tokens.
There are a few, yeah.
Yeah, in the set, and it's just that they're going to have decayed. And a lot of zombie decks don't care if they have to sack their zombies at the end of combat. That's not even a downside in a lot of decks. And or like you'll want to use those tokens for other things anyway, sacrificing them or something, or whatever else you can do. And therefore you won't care that they have to be sacrificed also. And the not blocking thing, yeah, that's the bigger downside for me. Is that's a pretty big bummer. But like I said, I think there's a lot of decks that won't even really care about that. So
I agree.
I'm excited to see what makes decayed zombie tokens and how good they're going to be in Commander.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into it.
That's all the commanders are. We're about to talk about the commanders. So let's just go from the main set where we're not going to touch on the commander deck ones, and that would also extend to the cards that are being put into like set boosters that are like neither in a deck nor in the main set, so you have to just open set boosters and hope you get one of them. We're not going to address any of those in this list. These are only from the standard regular booster packs that you can get.
Yeah, like for draft and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's get going. We'll start with our mono-colored legendary. We'll start with white, essentially. And the first one here is Adeline, Resplendent Cathar. 1 white, legendary human knight. She's a star 4 with vigilance. Adeline Resplendent Cathar's power is equal to the number of creatures you control. Whenever you attack, for each opponent, create a 1/1 white human creature token that's tapped and attacking that player or a planeswalker they control.
Wow.
I'm a fan.
That's very powerful.
Yeah, I'm a fan. 3-mana commander. It's mono white, but this is a strong mono white commander, it looks like. You're growing in power with the number of tokens and creatures you have, and it's making a lot of tokens. This is great.
It would not be hard to get a little bit of double strike here and go for like some one-hit kills with Adeline.
Definitely. And the vigilance is nice too, especially like you said, if there's something that's granting like a first strike or double strike, that's a nice defensive creature there too.
Assuming you're not already going wide, her first attack puts 3 more humans in a 4-player game. So that makes her a 4/4 at minimum.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's creatures you control. That's right. Wow. Yeah. As far as mono white commanders go, I mean, this is pretty strong.
Yeah,
it's kind of
like it.
What's that card? What's the one from Mirrodin that makes tapped attacking soldiers?
Oh, Brimaz?
No, that's from Theros.
No?
The it's another knight. She's like she has battle cry.
Oh, yeah. I know the one. I can't think of the name.
Yeah, I can't remember the name. But anyways, it's like that, but legendary, which is awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's move on. We've got Lear or Liar, Disciple of the Drowned. 3 blue, legendary human wizard. 3/4. Spells can't be countered. Right away. Real weird on a blue commander.
Okay.
No spell can be countered, even by you. So it doesn't say your opponent's control or anything like that. So like, you're not running a counterspell deck with this. Each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard has flashback. The flashback cost is equal to that card's mana cost. I gotta say, this is an interesting way to force a different kind of mono blue deck. I don't know what it looks like, but it's not the typical one.
True. Yeah. At least it's not going to be loaded with counterspells, right?
Yeah,
Like, that's pretty fun. I think this is a very good 99 card for that. Like, is it flashback or the Jeskai flashback decks? Obviously, but I think you're right. I think this is the helm of a interesting mono blue deck that does something besides counter everything you do, which I'm here for.
Yeah.
Here's one I was excited to see. It's mono black. It's Gisa, Glorious Resurrector. She's back. 2 black for the legendary human wizard. It's 4/4. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. Now that is powerful text right there. That has an effect on a game which can be somewhat oppressive if a person is trying to run a a graveyard deck or any kind of thing where they're sacrificing and getting death triggers and things like that. So they're not getting those death triggers because you're exiling them instead. But Gisa also says at the beginning of your upkeep, put all creature cards exiled with Gisa onto the battlefield under your control. They gain Decayed. So remember, a creature with Decayed can't block, and when it attacks, you sacrifice it at the end of combat.
There's your example of not on a token.
There it is. So I was thinking about brewing with this card last week, but we ended up going with something else. But chat pointed out to me, our Discord pointed out to me that the text that I thought was super oppressive, the exiling it instead, isn't that bad with this card actually, because it gets exiled, but then Gisa brings it back, and then they get sacrificed, and they go back to your opponent's graveyard, and they do go back to the graveyard then because it's only opponents. So you are still stopping those death triggers, but it's not like nothing goes to their graveyard ever. Stuff does still and eventually go to their graveyard, so it's not quite as bad as I think we've seen this text be in the past. So
you get a turn with your creatures, then I get a turn with your creatures, and then it's back to you.
It's back to you. They're in your graveyard. You can do whatever you want with them.
Yeah.
So actually, I'm interested to see how that plays. I think it looks good to me. I'm interested.
There's going to be some powerful lines with this commander where you just have an instant speed removal on someone's end step, and now it's like bang. Now this is my creature.
Yeah.
And it stays yours unless you attack with it.
Yes, that's true. That's
so like if it's a creature that defends well, although it can't block.
Well, they can't block. That's the only thing.
We're just looking for abilities, I suppose, at that point.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Cool.
There's 2 more mono black legendaries. They really went deep in black cards.
Well, it's Innistrad, I guess.
Jadar, Ghoul Caller of Nephalia, 1 and a black, legendary human wizard, 1/1. At the beginning of your end step, if you control no creatures with Decayed, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed. Wow. It's not Bitter Blossom, but like a free creature to sacrifice every turn cycle. That's pretty good.
It's kind of like Ophiomancer. Except that it doesn't,
your command zone.
Yeah, and it doesn't have the token can't block. Like Ophiomancer makes the 1/1 Death Toucher, which is nice, but this guy can't do anything.
The opposite of can't block.
Right. But I think this is going to be a very valuable 99 card for a lot of decks. I don't know about I'm sure you can find something to do with it if it's as a commander, but I feel like it's going to be more valuable as a 99 for sure. Okay. Jaren, Corrupted Bishop. This is a big one in Mythic. 2 and a black for the 2/3 legendary human cleric. Whenever Jaren enters the battlefield or another non-token human you control dies, you lose 1 life and create a 1/1 white human creature token. All right. Pay 2 generic. Target human you control gains lifelink until end of turn. At the beginning of your end step, if you have exactly 13 life, you may pay 4 black. If you do, transform Jaren. All right. And then if you have exactly 13 life, you transform them into Ormondal the Corruptor. Legendary creature demon, 6/6 flying, trample, lifelink, sacrifice another creature, draw a card. So we've seen Ormondal before, right? Ormondal was on the back
of the land, right?
Yeah. This is a good land where you have to make a bunch of clerics and then you sacrifice them. So this is cool. I like it.
It's so hard to transform though. Exactly 13 life.
It is. Yeah. I still like that there's like a little plan here with Jaren. I like that you're going to try and do this. Yeah. And then you're going to try and get Ormondal, who is pretty strong, right? Like sacrificing another creature to draw a card is a strong ability, and especially because you've probably made a bunch of little tokens. Don't you just wish that this was a white-black commander, though?
I do. I also wish you could activate this ability when you have 13 life, as opposed to just hoping nobody messes with you before your end step.
True.
It's tough. It's tough.
True.
Really tough to do.
But I do love that. I do like the aspect that it has a little. It's like a little mission for you to try to do. I do like.
Yeah, that is always fun. Okay, that's all Mono Black's the mono black ones. Let's get a mono green one in here. Sereth the Viper's Fang, 2 green legendary human warlock, 3/4. Other tapped creatures you control have Death Touch. Other untapped creatures you control have Hexproof. So basically, if you're attacking, you have Death Touch, and if you're blocking, you have Hexproof. 1 tap, untap another target creature or land you control. So you can give something Hexproof too. That's a very powerful commander.
Yeah.
The fact that it's mono green means the deck building will be limited in what you can put in there, but I don't know. It's very dangerous to just automatically have hexproof on your whole team. Like, it makes for some very like tough to deal with activated abilities.
Yeah, totally. I think it goes without saying this is just going to be great in those tapping decks, whether they be green red or green blue, or like there's a Bant tapping deck. I know there's also like that, like there's like a Teamer one that's really powerful. So probably a couple different ones actually. So Sereth is like automatic, I think, in a lot of those, just for the untapping ability, probably.
Well, with Finn, like, do you want this in Finn's deck or do you want Finn in her deck? Finn's that Kaldheim one where if you hit with a death touch, they get 2 poison counters.
Oh, okay. See, I was looking back through the list of these cards. I was like, who's Finn?
Right.
Yeah, right. And who's? Oh, I was just thinking of another one too. There's oh, I don't remember now. I lost my train of thought. But hey, I think this is a good card. I don't think it's going to be a great mono green commander. Like, just because, I mean, if you went like mono green tokens or something, there's something with the death touch, I guess. I don't know, but yeah, you're right. Like, I think
if you loaded
she goes in the Finn deck. I think that's what I think that's how it goes.
If you load her deck full of those effects, and there's a lot of them in green, where whenever a creature deals damage, you get to draw a card, and just like everything is attacking with death touch. It's like, well, here's your whole deck. Like, I'm not blocking any of these dumb little things.
I guess it would make sense to make her the commander of that deck too, because it feels like there's more creatures that grant that ability than do her ability.
Yeah.
Like, her ability seems like the more rare one.
Right.
And the more valuable one with the hexproof too, I think. So that's interesting. That's a good.
You can leave her untapped, so no one can take her off the board to like ruin your death touch plan.
True.
Oh no, it's other. It doesn't count for her.
Oh, you're right. Other untapped.
Oh well.
Untapped. Okay. Well, I like this. I like this card. I think it's interesting as a commander, and I think it's very goes in a ton of decks in the 99.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the multicolored cards, multicolored legendaries. This one we just mentioned, Dennek, Pious Apprentice, is white blue for a 2/3 human soldier. Legendary as lifelink. Cards in graveyards can't be the targets of spells or abilities, and it has disturb 2 white blue, which means you may cast this card from your graveyard transformed for its disturb cost. Okay, so it protects your graveyard. It's a 2-mana 2/3 lifelink. Okay. Transform it. So if you pay the 4, you get Dennek Pious Apparition, who's a 3/2 with flying. It's a legendary spirit soldier. And it says, whenever one or more creature cards are put into graveyards from anywhere, investigate. This ability triggers only once each turn. Of course. That would be wild. If Dennek Pious Apparition would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. So yeah, like you mentioned at the top of the show there, like if obviously that exile trigger is going to just send it back to your command zone, and you're not getting taxed for that disturb cost, which is nice. So basically, like, what are we liking about Dennek here? I like that it's like kind of tough to remove, but at the same time, I don't know if these abilities are like things I necessarily want to have as my commander. Like, this is a wonderful card to protect a graveyard and to get some extra value out of doing some graveyard stuff, but in white blue, which is an interesting.
That's not a color combination where players are looking to cherry pick your graveyard and take all the reanimate targets out of.
Yeah.
I think that's just to protect your flashback spells, maybe.
Right.
But the second half is the most interesting. Whenever a card is put in a graveyard from anywhere, whether it's milled or discarded, whether even if you cycle, it has to be a creature card.
Creature card, yeah.
So I don't know. You get a clue token.
So
I mean, it
it's
seems
not.
kind of interesting.
It's interesting because it's not even really one. Like when you mentioned flashback, I was like, oh yeah, there's like you could do a white blue spells, like graveyard spells, kind of like do a foretell thing as well, like get all this kind of like alternate value. But then it does say creatures. It has to be creatures to get
Well, I
that
mean, if you
investigate.
can mill other people, your first
That's
spells
true.
mill other people, that works too. And then you can crack those clues to keep going. You know, it's pretty. It's a good hard work in Azorius Commander, right? Salt of the earth. You gotta work. You gotta
Yeah.
work pretty hard to get, but you get rewarded when you do.
One thing I do like is that it's kind of different.
Yeah.
It does some different things from the command zone, and it's not just a generic like flyers are good, like
Right.
Azorius card like we often see. So I like that.
Next up is Florian Voldaren Scion, 1 black red, legendary vampire noble, first strike, 3/3. I'll just say right now, our next deck tech episode will be about this card, so we're not going to go too deep on this right now, but I will tell you what he does. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, your second main, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the total amount of life your opponents lost this turn. Exile one of them, put the rest on the bottom in a random order, and you can play the exiled card this turn. A little bit of card advantage, card selection, as long as you got some mana left over in your second main.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, this is just the way this is what we're getting from Rakdos a lot lately. Is like
Yeah.
a little bit of card draws, card advantage type stuff based on damage. Okay. Well, stay tuned next week for that deck. Let's see how that turns out.
Yeah.
That should be fun. All right, let's move on to Catilda. I love it. Catilda, Dawnheart Prime, green, white, another 2 mana commander here, which is cool. Legendary 1/1 human warlock has protection from werewolves, which is apt for this set, but not the biggest deal in Commander. Human creatures you control have tap, add 1 mana of any of this creature's colors, which is cool. And 4 green, white, tap this, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So basically,
Okay, we got a commander here.
yeah, we got a commander here, and obviously you're gonna try and steer towards humans, because then you get that bonus of, hey, now they all like basically all your humans give all your spells convoke, kind of, right? Like,
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
can tap for their own colors. So, that's a big ramp thing, and to have that at 2 is really interesting, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can get a board going and then drop Catilda and then for 2 mana and then still have a bunch of mana if you have a couple creatures out and then cast something really big. Like, this is cool.
I like it.
I wonder how you can take advantage of the fact that it has pro werewolves.
I mean, I don't think that part even matters.
It's gonna come up. I'm gonna make it come up at some point. But I like Catilda. Yeah, this is cool. I mean, kind of. I like that it's tribally, but also just nudging you in a slightly different direction than what tribal normally does. Anyways,
Yeah.
cool.
Let's go on to Lisa Forgotten Archangel. 2 white, white, black. Legendary creature angel. 4/5. Flying lifelink. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. And if a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. So they don't get things in their graveyard anymore. This is much meaner than Gisa.
Yeah.
Lisa's meaner than Gisa.
Yeah. Gisa's a Lisa wannabe.
And then our stuff just keeps coming back. So like you're probably gonna just load up with little creatures that do something when they enter or leave the battlefield, little card draw, little making treasures, and just keep the game under control. This seems like a strong candidate for a control deck.
Yeah. I saw, I think it was Dana from EDH Recast tweet about this, and I agree with him because it's exactly what I was thinking. That first ability is so fun and so good, and makes you want to build around it. But that second ability, like we mentioned with Giza, is it just turns off some people's decks, and
It's a bit of a fun police.
it is a bit of a fun police. And it's like, yeah, that's like it's so like across the board, like it's like rest in peace almost. Like it doesn't exile the stuff that's already there, like good, which is great. But
Right.
almost the worst part of rest in peace is the fact that now nothing else goes to the graveyard from this point on, and the fact that this is in someone's command zone and it has that ability. Poof, that's rough.
Yeah.
I just, my excitement for that. I just wish it didn't have that part on the bottom. I just
I
wish it
hear
had a
ya.
way, like, I almost would be like, hey guys, I'm running Lisa. I've got a real fun deck here, but this bottom part of the text, just pretend like it's not there. Like, how's that for a rule
Who
zero?
would ever deny that?
Like, who's there for that rule? What a rule zero conversation that is. Hey, I want my commander to be worse.
Great. I mean, what a perfect example of a rule zero conversation.
I would that is honestly what I would do if I was gonna build this deck, because I
Yeah.
wouldn't want that second half, that part there.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go on to Ludovic. He's back and he's different colors. Ludovic Necro Genius is blue black this time around. We've seen the Is It version of him, of course, before. But he's a legendary human wizard still. He's a 2/3. Whenever Ludovic enters the battlefield or attacks, you mill a card. Thank you. And he has the ability pay X blue, blue, black, black. And exile X creature cards from your library and transform Ludovic. X can't be 0, and you activate it only as a sorcery. Okay. So exile X creature cards from your graveyard, transform Ludovic. Okay. Then we transform him into Olog, Ludovic's Hubris. Legendary creature, zombie. It's a 4/4. As this creature transforms into Olog, it becomes a copy of a creature card exiled with it, except its name is Olog, Ludovic's Hubris. It's a 4/4, and it's a legendary blue and black zombie in addition to the other colors and types. Put a number of +1/+1 counters on Olog equal to the number of creature cards exiled with it. So you exile 3 cards from your graveyard. You pay 3 blue, blue, black, black. You turn Ludovic into Olog. Olog is a copy of one of those cards. Say you copied, I don't know. I can only think of banned cards because of our discussion.
Grave Titan.
Sure, it's a Grave Titan now, except that it's 4/4. Its name is Olog. And then you get to put 3 +1/+1 counters on it, because that's the number of creatures you exiled with it.
Yeah, since X can't be 0, it's always going to be at least one +1/+1 counter. And I don't see, like, I mean, at that point, I probably don't want it for the body. I probably want to copy something cool. So I would like to pay 5. I think. I don't think I'm looking to pay too much more than that.
I think this is very cool. I almost wish they made it even more bonkers, and it was like you got to, if X is 2 or more, you got to combine 2 things together. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
sure.
something like that.
Like a necrotic ooze effect, where you get all the activated abilities of everything that you exiled, and
that might be too strong or whatever. But like, even still, I like that idea though. But I still like this though. I think this is great.
Yeah, this is fine. What's the original cost? 2. Yeah, it's pretty cheap.
Cost 2, right? So then, yeah, you turn 6.
5 mana. It's essentially 5 mana haste as well, because, right? You don't exile anything.
What do you mean?
Yeah, you just transform him. Yeah, he doesn't exile and come back. So
No, he
whenever
doesn't,
you
no.
transform, you've got haste, sort of. So like you
True.
can surprise people with that Grave Titan, make 2 zombies right away.
Yeah, pay the 2 on turn 4, then on turn 5,
Yeah.
pay 5 and go to town if you can. I think it's a fun card. I think we're gonna see some creative stuff come out of it. You know,
Totally.
getting some +1/+1 counters on some things will be cool to see, and I'm excited to see what people do with it. I think it's a good new commander.
This is the best name for a new commander, Old Stick Fingers.
Yeah.
X black green legendary horror star. When you cast the spell, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal X creature cards. So 1, 2, 3, however many you paid. Put all the creature cards revealed this way into your graveyard. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. And Old Stick Fingers' power and toughness are each equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. So you automatically mill yourself for 3 for a creature, at as many as you pay for. And this does point to, I have seen people try to have the discussion. I didn't go deep in it. Haven't figured it out. But like, if you run one of those decks with like one creature in it, you can mill that every time.
Yes.
And if you put the right cards in your deck, you can kind of do some like combo shenanigans at that point.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, you can do the thing where you just turn your whole deck over. Like if you can put it on the bottom.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
if you run 0 creatures, you'll put your entire deck in your graveyard.
Just with old stick fingers for 3. Well, that's fun. But it's not blue, so I wonder what green black cards care about that.
I think people figured it out. I didn't have the mental power to like keep up with the discussion, but I
Yeah.
feel like people have already figured out the way to break this.
It's, of course. I mean, it just feels like it's inevitable, right? Even though it isn't in the traditional color that we know that does this.
I mean, it's the secret game of Commander, right? How do we break every legendary?
Do you think, as far as like I want a commander that fills the graveyard? Is this, and like most of the time, a Golgari deck cares about putting creatures in that graveyard. Do you think
the
is
problem
this,
is
is this the best commander for that?
The problem is if your deck's full of creatures, you're only going to get 4 or 5 cards in the graveyard, right? Like this deck, if you want your graveyard full of non-creatures, this card's incredible. But I don't know if there's a Golgari brew that wants
No,
it
the rest
full
go
of-
on the bottom of your library. You only put the creatures
Oh, they
there.
go to the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, so then I'm even wrong about what I was talking about. You don't get your whole deck in the graveyard.
That's true. You don't. Yeah, that's right. But you do get you do get the card you want in the, like if you had one that you wanted in the graveyard for some reason.
I think people were talking about a 3-creature combo.
Oh yeah, probably
run
having
3
to do
creatures.
with necrotic ooze or something. I bet.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that's one. Yeah, and then Stick Fingers has the abilities of the Necrotic Ooze and the other ones. No, he wouldn't. Or one of them can... I don't know. I didn't figure it out, but someone did.
I'm sure there's some crazy stuff you can do with old stick fingers. I think it's just fine in regular old. I want to put a bunch of creatures in my graveyard deck.
Yeah.
I would consider running it. I don't know if it'd be a commander that I would. I think you want the like reanimator as the commander there, as opposed to the person that mills. You know what I mean? The person that's putting all the mill into the deck. Having it be your commander is like.
Yeah.
Although that is essential in those decks. You really do need it. But anyways, okay. I think it's fun. I think it looks good. Next we have Rem Carolus. That sounds like a car.
Yeah, or like a Star Trek character.
Yeah, Rum. This guy's name is Rum, maybe. Rum Carolus. Stalwart Slayer. 1 red, white. Legendary Human Knight. 2/3. Flying in haste. Just some classic stuff there. If a spell would deal damage to you or another permanent you control, prevent that damage. That's cool. If a spell would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage +1 instead. Beef up your burn spells. You no longer take damage from spells, and permanents you control don't take damage from spells. So that's interesting.
I mean, this combos excellently with Pyrohemia because it does deal 0 damage to you and 2 damage to everything else.
True. Good call. Yep. That's an automatic include there.
I mean, that's the whole deck. Like that's all you want to do with this deck, right?
We brewed a deck like this the other day. The like deal a bunch of damage to your own stuff. It was with the Swans of Bryn Argol, which is so funny because this looks like it's a swan
Yeah.
that it's riding, like a swan horse.
A Swan Horse. It's
It's a
probably
bit-
an Archon.
It's a bit of a swan horse. It's not. It's a human knight. So that's a human riding a swan horse.
No, but see, but this is a card that refers to the person on the back, whereas a lot of Archon cards refer to the creature underneath the person.
No, we've discussed this in the past. We all know that the Archon is both figures. It is the person on the back, and
Okay.
they are one.
Right.
The Archon.
So
an Archon is
on
one.
this card, the duck is meaningless.
The duck horse thing is just a different animal altogether.
Okay.
I would love to see a card for the duck horse. If
Yeah.
anyone wants to make that, Seabrew Art Chow. Love to see it. Okay. All right. Let's move on.
The next up is Sigarda, Champion of Light. We already kind of talked about her with the Coven ability. I've got nothing else to say about her that I didn't say earlier.
Yeah, I don't love Coven, but she's good for a human deck.
Great. Then the next real new commander is Slogurk, the Overslime. 1 green-blue legendary ooze, 3/3 with trample. Whenever a land is put into your graveyard from anywhere, put a +1/+1 counter on Slogurk. Remove 3 +1/+1 counters from Slogurk. Return it to its owner's hand. When Slogurk leaves the battlefield, like if you activated it, return up to 3 target land cards from your graveyard to your hand. So this is a long way to go to get a land. The land goes, you mill the land into the graveyard, Slogurk gets bigger. But then you make Slogurk smaller again, and those lands go back into your hand. So you've gotten a net 0 to move a card from your deck to your hand. Like all that work, it just gets a deck to card to your hand, and nothing else is different on the board, except Slogurk has returned to your hand.
Interesting. I do think
It sounds like so much work for nothing.
I know, but I bet you it's really powerful. Do you know what I
I'm
mean?
sure it is.
Like that's what a classic Simic thing to mess with lands in this way, where everyone looks at this card and goes, "What? Who cares? What are you doing? You're bouncing the thing back and forth, and like you're putting a bunch of lands in your hand."
If you have the effects that let you play more than one land per turn,
yes.
then then Slogurk is really fueling that.
Yeah, and then there's something where you're churning the lands, you're milling them in there, and then you're playing more of them, and like every time a land enters the battlefield, you mill 2 cards or something. There's got to be something in blue.
Life from the Loam is amazing.
Yeah.
You can just keep doing that and just putting more cards into your graveyard.
There's got to be some stuff that does that, and I bet you there's like some wild stuff you can do with those cards on Slogurk.
Oh, certainly.
So I like that. Next we have Tovalar, Dire Overlord, 1 red, green. You know, I was gonna say,
Here we
Sean,
go.
yeah, this is we're pretty deep into the legendaries here, and we've talked about like the other abilities and stuff, and I haven't really seen any evidence of werewolves yet, really.
Saving the best for last, baby.
We've got
This is the werewolf
protection.
commander we've been waiting for years. We've been waiting years for this.
Here we go. Tovalar, Dire Overlord, 1 red, green.
No pressure, Tovalar.
You honestly no pressure, because the guy who came before you stunk big time. He was not good.
All the weight of all future werewolf decks lies on your shoulders.
Here we go. Whenever it's a 3/3. Okay, 3 mana 3/3. All right. Whenever a wolf or werewolf you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Okay.
All right.
All right.
It's a promising start.
At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more wolves and or werewolves, it becomes night. Then transform any number of human werewolves you control.
Ah.
Okay. Now, we didn't talk about it in the mechanics section, the whole day-night thing, because it's kind of the same as the way it was in the previous Innistrad, where with the werewolf changing thing. But a notable difference is that it only counts the stuff that you do on your turn, right?
Right. You got old werewolves and you got new werewolves.
Yeah.
Both of them care about
Transforming.
casting 2 spells in a turn
Mm-hmm.
to turn into the daytime nice human version.
Right.
Or casting no spells in a turn to turn it into night, the werewolf version. The new werewolves operate on a day or night system that the game tracks. These werewolves will never be out of sync. But the old werewolves could be out of sync if they come into play, because they always come into play on their day side, and then they have to transform somehow. But that is not true for these new ones. Tovalar's clause there covers both varieties.
Yeah, so that's
It
good.
turns night, and you transform all the humans, which covers the old school ones.
Right. So basically, we switch everything. If you control 3 or more wolves or werewolves, it becomes night. You're turning everything to werewolves. This is the daybound side. Now let's switch them over. Tovalar, the Midnight Scourge, is the werewolf side. Legendary 4/4 werewolf. Whenever a wolf or werewolf you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Okay. We still got that text. And X green red. Target wolf or werewolf you control gets +X+O and gains trample until end of turn. So we got what's that land? Ooh, I love it. It's a good land.
Oh, Kessig Wolf Run.
Thank you, Kessig Wolf Run. So it's Kessig Wolf Run on an actual wolf, and it's a werewolf commander. What do we think, Sean?
I think this is we did it. We've got a legit werewolf commander. The whole problem before is in a commander game, people are slinging spells everywhere, so your stuff goes back to day all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But at least with this, on your turn, at your upkeep, presumably you've got 3 wolves or werewolves. It will turn. You will get them all back for your turn at the very least. So, B-.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, unfortunately, this is just a mechanic that doesn't play well with Commander. It doesn't do what you want it to do. The old ones, it was a thing where, like, if 2 spells get played on a turn, it flips to day, which is bad usually.
Happens all the time.
Well, it happens on basically every turn. Even if I only play one thing on my turn, and then someone else plays something, that's 2 spells on the turn. That will flip it to day for the werewolf player, no matter who it is. Whereas at least this nightbound, daybound version, it has to be the one player doing it. So if it's Sean's turn, I've got werewolves. If he plays one spell and then someone else plays one spell, my werewolves won't change. It doesn't change. It's only if he does 2 spells. So that's good. And like I said, at least this does a thing where we're guaranteeing we have actual werewolves on our turn, and no one can mess with that. So that's fun. So yeah. Solid B.
We've got one more legendary, but we did a deck tech on him last time.
Right.
Vadrik, Astral Archmage. This is a 1/2 human wizard in Izzet colors that makes it day when it enters the battlefield. If it's neither, instant and sorcery spells cost X less, where X is Vadrik's power. And whenever day becomes night or night becomes day, you put a +1/+1 counter on Vadrik. Some really fun shenanigans we went over. I'd recommend going back and listening to that episode. That was a fun one.
Yep, definitely. And you can take advantage of that night and day switch, or you can just boost up Vadrik's power and go nuts. Like I said, listen to that episode. Listen to the Lost Cards episode, because that's where we also get into a bunch of other different deck possibilities with Vadrik. It's a very fun commander and a little more versatile than he looks at first glance. This is kind of a new little segment here, Sean. Why don't you tell them about what we're doing here?
Right. Well, we got we were trying to pare down the extra cards. We're not going to talk about too many of them, but a lot of them were just kind of stapley, vegetable-y type of cards. And we're like, these are good vegetables that I would run in a lot of decks. So we're just going to give you the new kind of vegetables we have access to first. Then we're going to move on. We're going to spend just a minute on these because there's not much to say beyond they're kind of vegetables. Fateful Absence is first. 1 and a white instant. Destroy a creature or planeswalker. Its controller investigates. Neat.
Notable that we basically have Doomblade in white.
Yeah,
right?
I like it.
Yeah. Its controller investigates, which kind of stinks, but whatever. Hey, not that big a deal.
If you're desperate, you could do one of your own and draw from the clue to get white card draw.
That's right. Next we have Vanquish the Horde. This is what we're talking about for sure. 6 white. Sorcery. This spell costs 1 generic less to cast for each creature on the battlefield. Destroy all creatures. It is a Blasphemous Act, essentially, except that it's two white pips there instead of the 1 red pip. But yeah, I think this is going to be a 2-mana board wipe for
2-mana board wipe
most of the time. I mean, we've all played Blasphemous Act. We know exactly that costs 1 red.
Yeah.
And even if it does only cast 3, 4. Even 5, it's still pretty good. So
yeah,
Vanquish the Horde is the new best commander board wipe, like proper
certainly.
board wipe, as in like destroying
Certainly.
all creatures. Yeah,
certainly is.
Okay.
The Meat Hook Massacre, X black. It reminds us a little bit of there's another black removal spell that gives all creatures -X. This does too, -X until end of turn. But it's an enchantment, so it's going to stay on the battlefield. And whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. You can sack a bunch of stuff, or if your stuff dies, you might just end up killing people then as well. And whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you gain a life. Does a lot. I mean, it's a lot to ask to spend a ton of mana to remove everything. You might not get everything, but you can still just drop this for 2 mana and get your aristocrats going and just it's also your win con.
This card's great.
Yeah.
It's like Black Sun Zenith, except that you get an enchantment that sticks around. It's a legendary permanent, which is not nothing. If you want to cast a legendary spell, this counts towards it, I believe. If there's anything else that cares about legendary too, the -X means you can really customize who you're killing, what creatures you're getting, what things you're letting stay alive, of course, in that way. And of course, like Sean just mentioned, the aristocrat part of it with the losing of life and the gaining of life is really great. Wow, what an incredible card. It's a mythic, unfortunately, but I mean, with this many abilities, I guess it has to be.
Yeah.
I love this card. It's great.
I do too.
It's funny, the guys who you and I don't really run that many board wipes in our decks in general, but the two cards that I think we've had the biggest reaction out of are 2 board wipes so far.
Yeah.
Next though is Dire Strain Rampage, 1 red green for a sorcery that says destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. If a land was destroyed this way, its controller may search their library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Otherwise, its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Flashback for 3 red green. So, at first blush, you've got a hull breach.
Yeah.
I think is the name of that card. For 1 more, that also gives them a land in replace of their artifact enchantment, or 2 lands if you destroyed a land, which obviously is still just giving them the 1 land. But you're upping them the 1 land, I guess.
I think the play here is in a lands deck to get one of your lands.
Yes, I was about to say but the flip side of it is that you can actually ramp with this card. It becomes like a Harrow.
Landfall triggers. It works from the graveyard another time later in the game.
Yep.
I think that's what this card's for.
Absolutely.
And then destroying opponents' enchantments or artifacts is sort of like the bonus you don't love.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a ramp card that can do extra work if you need it to. And then I wouldn't want to do this, but if there is an absolutely terribly problematic land, yes, you can still get that too, right? You're going to be putting your opponent up 1, but in that case, it's obviously
if that's
good enough
if that's better than the land.
That's better than letting them have their guy's cradle or or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think this card's good, and the fact flashback is awesome. That's great.
We've got a new removal spell, Infernal Grasp. 1 and a black, instant, destroy a creature. You lose 2 life. We don't care about 2 life in Commander. 2 life's nothing. This is basically a better Doomblade.
It really is. This is. People, I think, are beginning to lean back towards more targeted removal in Commander. Well, this is a great one in black, no question about it.
Every there isn't another 2 mana one that does. There's either has to be non-merfolk or non-black or something or non-artifact,
or it'll be a black to do something, and then there'll be a little restriction on it. It'll be that type of thing where you get the double pips. This is still 1 and a black. This is the same cost as Doomblade.
The only drawback is the least important drawback in Commander.
Exactly. Life is a resource. Okay, finally in this sort of vegetable category, we've got Rite of Oblivion, which is white-black for a sorcery that says, as an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a non-land permanent, exile target non-land permanent, and then it flashes back for 2 white-black as well. So normally, we've got a couple of these spells that exist. There's some even mono white ones. There's one that does this where you sacrifice something and then you get to exile something. I don't think that this particularly stands up to a lot of the more recent white-black exile spells we've seen, except for the flashback thing. The flashback thing makes it interesting, but you still have to exile. You still have to sacrifice a non-land permanent for this to work, even on the flashback. So you're probably in a deck that doesn't mind that. So, but I'm just saying that this isn't the ubiquitous white-black exile spell that goes in a lot of white-blacks. You probably want to keep this one to the type of deck that wants to sacrifice things.
Yeah, agreed. Well, those are the vegetables. We've got a handful of cards we'd love to talk about, and these are just cards that kind of piqued our interest that are oh, that's a neat card. Yeah, we're home stretch here.
Okay. These are not in the tabs, so let's start calling them up here.
Oh,
I've got Enduring Angel. Two white, white, white. It's a mythic. It's an angel. It has flying and double strike, and it says you have hexproof. It's also a 3/3, so 3/3 flying double strike. You have hexproof. If your life total would be reduced to 0 or less, instead transform Enduring Angel, and your life total becomes 3. Then, if Enduring Angel didn't transform this way, you lose the game. So that's interesting. So, if you would die, you transform Enduring Angel, and it transforms into Angelic Enforcer. It's a star flying. You have hexproof still. Angelic Enforcer's power and toughness are each equal to your life total, and whenever it attacks, you double your life total. So you start off as a 3/3 because you have 3 life from her. Your would be dying and her transforming, and then whenever she attacks, go up to 6, go up to 12. Interesting.
both sides give you hex proof, so no one can lightning bolt you, no one can ping you to death.
Right.
You're only going to take that damage from combat. So when you have an Enduring Angel, your opponents will know, like, well, I'm not going to. You have what, 4 life left? I'm not going to hit you for 4. 'Cause that would be stupid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. I wonder why they had to put that. Then, if Enduring Angel didn't transform this way, you lose the game thing.
I think that's in there so you can't cheat the back.
Or so you can't leave this side up somehow.
Yeah, right. If you copy it.
Yeah.
Right. If you copy this and then it can't transform and you would never die.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. Yeah. You can't make a clone of this, for example.
Right.
Interesting. Okay.
Good save.
Yeah, good save. Good save, R&D. So, I mean, there's a couple cards that do this, and I think they're kind of underrated in Commander. I think this card is good.
Yeah.
It's not like running every deck or anything, but it's good.
Next up, we've got Sigarda's Splendor. It's 2 white for an enchantment, and as it enters the battlefield, you note your life total. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card if your life total is greater than or equal to the last noted life total for Sigarda's Splendor. Then note your life total. Then whenever you cast a white spell, you gain a life. So basically, this is white card draw. The only condition is you can't go down in life. As long as your life is the same and constantly going up, you get to draw a card.
Note.
You will always be noting a new life total. Unfortunately, that's a drawback because I would love to like note a nice high life total, and then, or that I guess maybe I wouldn't, because then if it goes down,
a low life total, and then gain some life and then stay above that.
I mean, it resets every turn, so it doesn't matter what happens. If you lose a bunch of life for some reason, that's okay. You can make it back next time. It's kind of a message to not give up. Like, if you failed one round to get this card, maybe you'll get it next time. It's okay.
Yeah, it's neat. I agree. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, obviously, life gain decks are going to love this card.
It's potentially it's a white card that potentially draws a card every turn. That's incredible.
But it's also going to incentivize people to attack you.
Sure. I mean, I got all my like ghostly prisons, and like I'm gonna make it real hard for you to do that.
Yeah, so you're gonna that's the kind of deck that's gonna like that you're gonna want to support this card with, right? Yeah. Okay, next a blue card, Poppet Stitcher. 2 and a blue for a 2/3 human wizard. It's a mythic. Poppet Stitcher.
Look at that Poppet.
That's a scary looking Poppet. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more creature tokens, you may transform Poppet Stitcher. And it transforms into Poppet Factory. It's an artifact. And it says creature tokens you control lose all abilities and have base power and toughness 3/3. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may transform Poppet Factory. So you can transform him back into the Stitcher at the beginning of your upkeep. But otherwise, all the 2/2 zombies with Decayed that you made are now 3/3s without Decayed.
Yeah.
So they're higher in quality neat. Poppets. Yeah, it's fun.
Well, like, if you're making 1/1s, they all turn into 3/3s. That's fun.
Like this seemed like it almost should have been a legendary.
Oh yeah.
You know, like this feels like it's telling me a story. One thing I was going to say about this whole set in general is that in the Innistrad sets have been, well, there's only been two of them, but like that's not true. I guess there's like Dark Ascension and Avacyn and all that. They do a good job of always like it telling a story through the cards, and you can always get a hint of the story, even when we're doing something like this, where we're just looking at legendaries and we're just looking at like the commander cards. It always felt like we were getting hints of a story. This one, I'm not really getting a story. I know there is one. I know it's probably a little bit more to do with the werewolves based on the name of the set and everything. But I haven't been getting
Yeah.
it through the legendaries that we've looked at so far, that's for sure. And the cards we've looked at so far. But Puppet Stitcher is one that all in and of itself, it kind of has this little story going on. Even in the art, like with the little on the back of the Puppet Factory with all the little puppets looking like they're marching along and they're looking up. And they're like, oh, okay, we're like, okay, we can run around here now. Everything's come fine. And the guy is inside of the like
Yeah.
jar. I don't know. Really cool art. Really cool card. Would have loved to see it as a commander, but hey, I'll take it.
The
Take it
flavor
anyway.
text on the back, it may have been a mistake to give them minds of their own.
Yeah, it may
It's
have.
like little Chuckies. Just so
Yeah,
you make a bunch of Chuckies.
it is Chucky's. That's awesome. Yeah, I love this card though. I think it's a lot of fun.
How about Sludge Monster? 3 blue blue for a horror. 5/5. 5 mana 5/5. Not bad. Whenever Monster enters the battlefield or attacks, put a slime counter on up to one other target creature. Non-horror creatures with slime counters on them lose all abilities and have base power and toughness 2/2. So it turns things into bears
Yeah. I have a
whenever
question.
it enters and attacks. Yeah.
So, does Sludge Monster, is this one of those things where Sludge Monster grants the ability, or is it the
Yeah.
counters?
The Sludge Monster does.
Right. So if Sludge Monster is dead, and those things still have slime counters on them, the slime counters don't actually do anything, right?
No, they're just Peter Venkman covered in slime,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
he's still Peter Venkman.
But he's still Peter Venkman. He's not a 2/2
No.
grizzly bear.
No.
Okay, great. So, but it's still good though. Obviously, something if you keep bringing it back, it can keep having effects
It's
like
hard
that.
to compete. It's hard to compete with all those other blue creatures that when they enter, you take something.
Yeah.
And you did it like that's. But I mean, this also goes when it attacks as well. So you just keep going. I don't know.
This is a nice thing to do to commanders, though, right?
Oh, very nice. But then you can't attack anymore because they'll just block with it.
Right. But if that's not the type of deck you're running, that's cool, obviously,
Yeah.
right?
True.
So,
True.
an interesting
And
card.
you're allowed to attack other people and make the deal. It's like, okay, if I attack you, will you just chump Sludge Monster, but I'll put the counter on
Yeah.
this guy's commander?
Yeah, definitely. There you go. Some possibilities there. I like Sludge Monster. Next, we have Triskaidekaphile. Yes.
Yeah.
Triskaidekaphile. 1 and a blue for the 1/3 human wizard. You have no maximum hand size. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have exactly 13 cards in your hand, you win the game. And then 3 and a blue, draw a card.
13 cards.
13 cards in your hand, you win the game. At your upkeep.
Yeah.
Feels like it's probably not that hard. The only thing is that like if someone's going to instant speed remove your Triskaidekaphile, even if it's like in response to the trigger and you have to like counter it or do something, that's going to affect your hand size. So it's like, ooh, okay.
Right. You've got to have like a creature on the board that can do it.
Yeah, or have like 15 cards in your hand and then be ready.
But then they just don't do anything.
But then you have like a draw spell. So you're like, okay, I'll play this spell and then I'll play this spell. And then I guess they
Well,
got to remove it.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
You can't outsmart them.
You can't. Alternate win cons, I'm still always a fan of no matter what, just because they're
Yeah.
different and like a fun achievement to try and unlock. When they are hard to do, when they're like weird ones where it's like have 50 life, it's like okay, that's whatever, that's boring. But this one's interesting and seems hard, so I'm all for it. I'm all for trying to make this work.
Next up is our black card, Lord of the Forsaken. 4 black demon, flying trample 6/6. Black, sack another creature. Target player mills 3 cards. Okay. Pay 1 life, add colorless. Spend this mana only to cast a spell from your graveyard. Interesting. I'm sure there's numerous ways to get infinite black mana, but can you also get infinite creature tokens to mill everybody out? I'm sure you can.
Yeah.
You can only get colorless from the graveyard to cast a spell from your graveyard. I don't know that there's that much to do from the graveyard. I mean, you got to have some pips as well, but it's cheap. Makes flashback real cheap.
Seems powerful and seems like the type of card that will be forever like $15 because it's a part of some combo like that. Even though it is 6 mana, I guess.
I think this needs to be an Arachdos deck so that you can cast that card that gives everything in your graveyard flashback, and now you're just paying a ton of life for all the colorless portion, and you're just paying for like a few pips to just get everything.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, if you have like a Comet Storm in your graveyard that you can give flashback and just pay life for the X, there we go.
Ooh, yeah. This is cool.
Okay.
I didn't think about
Gotta be
flashback.
Rakdos, though.
Yeah. It's all. I mean, it would also work really well with Disturb, but like you said,
there's only one black Disturb.
Black Disturb creature. All right. Well, let's move on then. Let's talk about Mask of Grizzlebrand. This is a cool one. 1 black legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature has flying and lifelink, and whenever a equipped creature dies, you may pay X life where X is its power. If you do, you draw X cards, and the equip cost is 3. So it turns your whatever creature into a creature that has a Grizzlebrand-like effect, but undying, which was not a Grizzlebrand thing. Grizzlebrand could just do that at will. Which, it makes sense that they don't want to just make everything Grizzlebrand. So, but here's the thing, though. With sacrifice decks and everything, you kind of do just have that, because sacrificing creatures is nothing. And especially if you're going to sacrifice something big and just draw a million cards from it, like, who cares? That's great. Attack, throw this on your demon, swing in. You basically do have Grizzlebrand.
Yeah.
Gain that life, sacrifice it, draw a million cards, pay the life, who cares? I think it's good. I think this is going to be used and abused, as they say.
Yeah. Someone's going to complain that it doesn't cost a total of 7 to like cast and equip.
And that someone is going to be you right now.
I don't mind. I want cheaper equipment. But that was a complaint a few people had, why it wasn't all 7s.
Right, yeah. I can live with it not being that, because I agree. Equip cost of 3 is pretty good to me.
Let's move on to Augur of Autumn. 1 green human druid, 2/3. You can look at the top card of your library anytime. You can play lands from the top of your library. Awesome. That alone is a cool ability.
Yeah.
I like that set. And also Coven. As long as you control creatures with 3 different powers, you may cast creature spells from the top of your library. This is a tight little card.
Yeah, absolutely. Coven is, like I said at the top, Coven is it's more about what the ability you're going to get from it is, and like, is it going to be worth going through the hoops of like getting 3 different powers, and how much of your deck is going to have to be about doing that if you include a lot of Coven stuff, But this one seems like, hey, playing lands from the top of my library is great. Looking at the top card is like not that big a deal, but it's still kind of nice. And yeah, like, whether or not you build specifically around Coven, I don't think it's that hard to get. So we're going to be able to cast creatures from the top of our library, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm in. I like it a lot as well. This one next is, we've got some more oozes here. Consuming Blob, 3 green. It's a star +1. So we'll probably recognize that from the old Tarmogoyf. Consuming Blob's power is equal to the number of card types among cards in your graveyard, and its toughness is equal to that number +1. Yes, we see that. Yes, there it is. It's Tarmogoyf. At the beginning of your end step, create a green ooze creature token with this creature's power is equal to the number of card types among blah, blah, blah. Same thing. So basically it just makes a copy of itself at the beginning of your end step, which is pretty wild. It's a 5-mana Goyf. And it copies itself at the end step. I'm personally more interested in the fact that this makes copies an automatic token copy of itself at the end step. That's the only thing I really think is great about this. I could care less about how big it gets. I don't, whatever.
Yeah.
I think 5 mana is a lot to pay for something that's only going to be like a 2/3, and then it
I
makes a
know
copy.
we've got Tender Shoot Dryad. That's always going to be the 5-drop that makes way more tokens, and they're
but that
always
card
going to be
is-
3/3s.
That card's expensive now, though. So I
Yeah,
wonder
so
how
maybe
much
this
of this
is
one.
the budget.
I mean, it is mythic, so I don't know if it's going to be budget, but it might be. It might end up being that dollar.
You don't
mythic.
get a token every upkeep. You get it on your
You get it on
turn
your
only.
end step, yeah, at the beginning. So yeah, that's true. It's not nearly as good as that card, but it is. It's something for ooze decks, and it's something for wanting to make tokens and stuff like that. So
Sure.
One more. Unnatural growth. Go ahead.
1. Green. green. Right, 5 total. All green but 1. The rest, that 1 colorless, 4 green. Enchantment. At the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. Well, I mean, it does what the card says.
Yeah, wow. Yeah,
Double
just
everything
doubles
every
everyone's power.
turn.
Yeah. So that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
It costs 5 to permanently have a crazy anthem, basically. It's only power, but still, that's wild.
But power and toughness.
Oh, it is power and toughness. Oh my god, you're right. Okay. Yeah, that's very good.
This is very good.
Unnatural growth. All right. The new anthem is here.
Like, it's
Kind of, right?
It doesn't give trample, but it's sort of an overrun in the sense that, like, I'm attacking for way more than
Here's
I was
the thing,
before.
Though. Here's the downside of this card. We're picturing it as even like 2/2s, 3/3s, and 4/4s. But if you have a thing of 1/1s, it's not that good. It's just a regular. It's just a plus one
You're
plus
right.
one anthem for 5 and 4 green pips, which is not good. So it actually overrun is oftentimes way better until you're talking about creatures that are 4/4 and bigger. Overrun is strictly better. And then even then you can argue that just having overrun the sorcery, I mean, obviously it doesn't stick around, but if we're talking about the big turn that you're trying to go off here, the trample is almost better to have than that extra 1 or 2, power toughness as well. So
No, I'm running this in decks with 4/4s and like big tokens. Anything with Omnath probably wants this.
yeah, this is like the what's it called there? Xenagos. Like Xenagos.
Xenagos doubles and then this doubles?
Yeah, exactly. Just if
It's
your whole
over.
theme is
It's over.
doubles, it's one big one. Double, double.
Put a Dictate of the Twin Gods out, so now you do double damage.
Oh yeah, you gotta have doubles, right? Triples is better. Triples is safer, but doubles are good. Doubles are nice to have. Okay, so that was our last green one, but there is 3 more left, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
3
So
more.
next is Cathar's Call. 2 and a white, enchantment, aura. Enchanted creature has vigilance, and at the beginning of your end step, create a 1/1 white human creature token. Whatever. This is decent,
Fragile AF.
but also like it's at least at the end step. There's another one of these from Innistrad that basically does it on your upkeep, gives you a human token, and it's like unplayable. This one at least gives it to you at the end step.
Well, this next aura, there must be a combo here. This is Necrosynthesis. 1 and a black, enchant creature. Enchanted creature has, whenever another creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So right there's got to be a way, like a creature that can remove its own counters to like if things are dying, and like I'm sure there's something there. Haven't thought it through yet. But this is also part of what you get when enchanted creature dies. Look at the top X cards of your library where X is its power. Put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom in a random order. Just landing this on a creature successfully, you have a few sack outlets. It's like, okay, the creature's going to get pretty big, and when it eventually dies, or if someone tries to exile it, I'll just sack it. I'm going to get to look at 10, 7, 6 cards and pick one. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's not bad. I think often these types of abilities can be a little underrated, but that digging and getting a card is actually really, really great sometimes, especially when it's the bonus feature of a key combo card, right?
Yeah.
So that's cool. And finally, we have Dryad's Revival, which is another green card, 2 and a green. Sorcery, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. It's basically just a regrowth, but for 1 more. But it has flashback, 4 and a green. Man, I'm telling you, I like it a lot because I've recently really come around on how good regrowth is. It's an old card, but it's so strong. And 2 mana is where it's at for that card. I think that's like the best. Three's decent too, though, still, because the flashback obviously is where you get the bonus there. You get that real value. I like it.
The crazy thing about having flashback on this is now we can just mill without any worry, because if you mill this, great, I'm gonna use its flashback to get back the thing I also milled. Like you always had to be careful. It's like, well, I don't want to mill my regrowth because then I can't do anything. But it's like, no, this is fine. This is great.
Yeah, it's good. It's strong. I like it a lot. Those graveyard decks are gonna love that stuff, and now it goes in a lot more as well because as a result.
Mm-hmm. That's it. That's MID.
That is it. That's the Midnight Hunt. That's the return to Innistrad.
Right.
Who knows what story's going on? Something about werewolves.
And to close us out is an album cover of 2 weird dudes. One of them might be holding their privates.
Listen, if you are watching this on YouTube and you're very confused right now, that makes sense. Go listen to the audio show, the first 10 minutes of the audio show, and you'll understand. But here it is, holding their own.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks for watching. If you love what we're doing, consider supporting the show by going to patreon.com/commandersbrew.
And if you want to get any of the cards from our deck list, go to our TCG Player affiliate link below.
That helps us out too, and for a free way to help us out, consider sharing the show with some friends. Like and subscribe, add a comment or 2.
See you later.
Bye.